Hi there. We've already created a full-fledged character, and in this lesson, we'll be improving them. We'll create a script to save the current progress, make sure that the object doesn't get destroyed when moving to a new level, and add the ability to buy width and height for coins. Here's what we'll get at the end. We can buy character properties, for example, make them wider or narrower. It's important to keep these properties when moving to the next level. Now let's learn how to do it. This is the most difficult lesson in this course, I think. Because we need to make sure that some data is saved when switching between scenes. In particular, we want to make this guy wider. If we press this button, he should get wider, and these changes need to be permanent. That is, he may develop while passing through the level, but these changes are reset at the end, unlike those permanent changes. So we need to figure out now how to make sure that some data is transferred from one level to another. This is the first thing. We'll also make two scripts interact a lot. These are usually the most difficult things in understanding programming. But I think you'll manage. Let's begin. I'll create a new script and call it progress. It will store the data that we want to transfer from level to level. By the way, later it'll be convenient to use the same script to create a save system, because this is exactly the data that we want to save if the player closed the game and opened it again. But more about that later. So far, it's enough that this data is stored here. What are we interested in? I'll make these fields public right now, because we'll refer to them in other places. First, the number of coins must be preserved on the new level, so let's call it coins. Then the character width. We'll save it here as an integer. Width and height. That's basically all the information we need. This progress object will move across levels. I'll show you how to do it using the awake method. Awake is a special Unity method. Here we have the start method, and this is awake. They're similar, and they're called before the first frame, but awake is called even earlier than start. So it's the very first method to be called. And it's important now. Unity has a convenient function that's called don't_destroy_onload. If you call it and specify an object here, it simply won't be destroyed when switching between scenes. We move from one level to another, and this object stays as it was. There's an important detail here. This object can't be a child object to anything. It mustn't move to another level, so there's a kind of uncertainty here. You need to unparent the object from everything. I'll write transform.parent equals 0. It's important to do this before we call don't_destroy_onload, otherwise there will be errors in the console. Let's save this script and see how it works. I will create a new object by clicking Create, Empty, call it Progress, and put the progress script there. Here are the fields where we'll store the player's progress. How many coins they've earned and how wide the character is. I'll drag this object to Common. We actually need it on every level. Click Apply All. If you click Play now, you can see the changes in the hierarchy. Firstly, we have our level 1 starting scene here, and secondly, a special don't_destroy_onload section has been added here. The player's progress is there. It's as if it's in a separate scene that isn't destroyed, but travels through the game. Let's do one more thing with progress. We'll actively refer to it now. In particular, Coin Manager needs to find out how many coins are in progress right now and display them at the start of the level. We need to write it in Coin Manager. Void start. Here. I also thought, let's rename this field after all. It's now called Number of coins in level. Let's just call it Number of coins. It's just the total number of coins that the players collected, and it's shown in the upper right corner. By the way, this is a good time to show you how to rename fields, because you may often want to do that. If you just rename it, you'll have to erase it everywhere like this. It's terribly inconvenient, because you may use the same name 200 times. Right-click and rename it. There's also a keyboard shortcut, press Ctrl or twice. They all become green and we can edit them. I also want to make this field public so that we can refer to it from other classes. Because the store needs to know the number of coins in order to check whether there's enough money to buy something. Here. Let's make it public. By the way, public fields are automatically displayed in the inspector. You don't need to add a serialized field attribute. Let's leave it like this. I'll describe another problem now. I want to do the following. In start, type number of coins equals. Then I want to address the progress object and take the amount of coins that's stored in it. But how do we refer to it? Actually, we've already done similar things using FindObject of type. We're just looking for this object in the scene. But I must say this takes time. If you do it rarely, for example, you won a game once, found an object, and called a method, it isn't a problem. But if this happens frequently, several times per frame, it searches for the component in every scene and in all objects. This may be unproductive. Let me show you another way to refer to a certain object that's in the scene in a single instance. It's called singleton. Singleton is a design pattern. That's how it's usually described. You write it like this. This is the simplest code that you can use to create a singleton pattern. In a nutshell, the idea is that we need to make sure that the object is present in the scene in a single instance. A variable is created where the object saves itself. At the start, if the variable is still empty, everything's okay and it can be saved there. But if it isn't empty, if something has already been saved there, the object self-destructs. As a result, there will be exactly one progress component in the scene. After it's been created once, everything else self-destructs. One more thing. This thing has made it very easy for us to access the progress class. It's very easy to find it in the scene. Now we can write in CoinManager progress instance, and we can find something out, for example. The number of coins. We use find to search for an object, but now we can write this if it's a singleton. But this is done via a static field. I'm not going to explain that in detail right now. For now, it's enough to understand that if you write this here, you can access a component like this in a quicker way. And if it's a manager, some object that's only one in the scene, you can make it a singleton. Let's change progress a little more. We need to unparent it and write don't destroy unload, but only if this object is the first of its kind. But if there are others, it must be destroyed. That's it. Let's leave it like this, and we need to check how it all works. First, we take the number of coins from progress. Next, we assign number of coins here, but we also need to update the counter, so we'll also call this line right away to update the number of coins. When the game is over, the number of coins changes in CoinManager. All the collected coins need to be saved in progress. We save them in a way. Let me add another method here. Public void. Let's call it save to progress. We'll do the opposite here, that is, progress. Instance, coins equals number of coins. It's as if we took the number of coins from it in the beginning, played the level, the number changed, we collected more coins, and we need to save the new number in it at the end. We need to call the save to progress method at some point. At the end of the game, for example, before moving to the next level. Let's go to Game Manager in the script. Here. We can call it here, for example. Let me add a link to Coin Manager to Game Manager. Now. For example, now we've made sure that everything is okay and the next scene exists. We call the save to progress method from Coin Manager. Everything seems to be in place. Let's check it. Coin saving should already work well. If you changed anything, remember to click Apply so that no prefabs have a blue dash. Let's start the game. We're on the first level with 0 coins. Now we're collecting the coins. We probably need to make purchases cheaper after all. $100 coins is too expensive. That's it, the game is over. Click Next. I forgot to add a link to Coin Manager to Game Manager. This field is empty. Of course, it's necessary to assign it, and click Apply All. That's it, I lost. And now we'll move to the next level if we click Next. There are 0 coins in progress so far, but when we click Next, the number changes. They're saved here, and they load at the start of a new level. Let's check it again. Let's click Next. That's it, great! You've learned to transfer data from one scene to another. This is thanks to the progress object, which exists everywhere, and you can save data to it. Now let's do the most interesting thing of all. We have buttons here. We should be able to use them to buy things. Let's just fix one small bug before we start. Here's what's happening. I try to press this button, but the right button gets pressed. You'll see why. The thing is, this text has a big frame. Unity works strangely, even if this area is empty, but there's a text frame. We try to click here, but we end up clicking this button. How can you fix this? Either reduce this frame. One of the options is just to reduce the width like this, and the problem is solved. Or remove the check mark from the text. In the settings, go to Extra Settings and find Raycast Target. Deselect it, and the text won't be clickable. We don't really need it to be clickable. We just click the picture, so this solves the problem, too. This area is no longer clickable. Of course, you're not doing it in play mode, so I need to set it up again. Let's move on to the shopping script. Just one more thing, 100 seems like too much. Let's have the improvements cost 20 coins. 20 is just a number for now. We'll write the same number in the script later. I'll create a new script, call it shop, and put it on some object in the scene. On an empty object that's called shop. I think this is the only correct place to put it. But if, say, you put it on a camera, like I've often seen beginners do, it'll be very difficult for anyone else to find it. They'll have to use the search. The best option is to use a separate empty object. The shop needs new purchase methods. Public void by width and by height. First, we need to see if we have enough coins. We need a link to CoinManager. Type if _CoinManager.number of coins. Once again, I made number of coins a public field, so we can access its value from another script. If the number of coins is greater than or equal to 20, we can buy this thing. The same goes for height. Buying means we have to spend coins, right? So we subtract 20 from the number of coins. After that, we also need to subtract them from progress. Subtract them from progress too, from here. Progress, instance, coins. We'll write it like this, equals _CoinManager number of coins. We save the current number of coins again. We use the money to buy width, so progress, instance, width plus equals some number. You need to find some balance here, right? For example, 25 units of width. Bought it. We'll do the same with height. You can copy this code, only change this to project, instance, height. So far, we've been working with data only. Now we need to transfer all this to player modifier so that the actual character would also change. We have the add width and add height methods here. For adding width and height. Of course, you can call them from the shop, but it'll be a bit neater and more convenient if we create a couple more methods. I'll call it setWidth. Set the width, pass the width value here. Then create a similar method for height, setHeight. What will setWidth do? _width equals value. After we've called it, we need to update the width. Because character material affects width, we need to call updateWidth. And the character's height. _height plus equals value. Since the character's height changes in the update, this is enough. Now you just need to call these methods from player modifier in the shop. Shop and player modifier are in different prefabs, right? That is, one is a player, and the shop is in common. Because of that, we can't just add a field and a link to player modifier here in the shop. So we need to find this component in the scene. Let's do it using find. But we'll be a little more careful. I'll add a private player modifier field here, but we won't even display it in the inspector. At the start of the script, we'll just write _player modifier equals find object of type player modifier. This way, once at the very beginning of the level, at the start, we search for this component in the scene, save it to this variable, and it'll be here. Later, we can refer to it by this name. For example, we change the width here. We call the setWidth method in player modifier and pass this number to it. Exactly the same goes for height. Moving on to the last important point here. When we spend money, we write _coinmanager.number of coins equals 20. It will be spent, of course, the numbers will change alright, but we still need to display this number here, you see? So when we press the button, the money is spent, but we don't call the method to update this number anywhere. Let's do it. We'll create another method for CoinManager and call it spendMoney. Public void. Spend money. What will it do? We specify how much money we spend, so it's best to call it value. And we subtract this value from the number of coins. Then you need to update the text. Simply use this line. We'll make a few changes here. We won't just change the number in the shop, not just change this field here, you see? We'll call the method instead. Spend money 20. Replace it here in the same way. It's actually fairly common to take a number from one script and change it in another script. Most likely it won't work right. Because after something changes in the script, in the object, something else has to happen. Its appearance has to change or it has to affect something, like in this case. You can see that it's not enough to change the number. Something else needs to be done. That's why we usually change the fields by calling a method, like we did here. Calling the method allows us to perform more actions after that. By the way, to quickly move on to the implementation of this method, press and hold the Control key and click it. In general, I press and hold Control when I click everything. This way, we can go from one script to another, find a method, and highlight it. Like this. By the way, I think it's much harder if you don't know about this. You have to look for everything every time and scroll a lot. Let's see the result that we got. Remember to add all the links. Add a link to CoinManager, drag the shop object into the common object, and click Apply All. We also need to assign events to buttons. There are 2 buttons here. We need to add events that happen on click. Drag the shop here and select it. By width. By width for this button, and by height for the other one. I'm applying the changes to the prefab again, and then we'll see. We have 0 coins now. You can simulate the situation where we have a lot of coins if you write 500 in progress. This will be the number of coins we have at the start. Press the buttons. Cool! The height increases, and the number of coins decreases here and here. You can see that this height stays the same. The width also increases, and everything works. One last thing we haven't done yet, if they already have some width and height, for example, 100, if the user has already bought them, these things won't be updated at the start. Because we haven't written it anywhere yet, so let's do it. Let's add the start method to the player modifier script. We already have very convenient set width and set height methods, so we just need to call them from here at the start. And take the value from progress. Progress, instance, width. Do the same for height. Save it. Now we'll test everything once again. The values are correct. Let's reset everything to the start value. You can press the reset button, and everything will reset to 0. I'll apply this to the prefab. For now, we start with empty pockets. By the way, now you can run through 2 gates at once, but you can adjust their sizes so that it doesn't work. Click Next, go to a new level, great. And let's buy some height. That's it, the coins were spent, and the height increased. The character certainly grows much higher during the level. But in the beginning, they'll have this width. It's permanent, so to speak, the character became wider. Our game is getting closer to completion. You just need to find the right balance. Try to make it so that the number of coins reflects how much the character develops in an interesting way, and of course the levels need to be made more interesting. Here are the important points from this lesson once again. To prevent objects from being destroyed during transitions between scenes, use the Don't Destroy on Load method. For objects that are represented in the scene in a single instance, you can use the singleton design pattern. This makes it easier to access the object from other scripts.